From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, this is Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. In today's show, Mark visits with National Cattlemen's Beef Association President-elect Kim Brackett. I have the latest export sales with Greg McBride of Allendale. And special correspondent Russ Parker talks with Kirk Dailey of Central Life Sciences. Now here are your hosts, Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman.
Well, welcome into another week of Iowa Ag Matters. We're going to be in different sides of the country here from the beginning of the week to the end of the week, Mark. But we are getting ready for Commodity Classic starting up here later on this week. And of course, before we get too much further into this, we remind you that the first segment of Iowa Ag Matters is brought to you by Meristem Crop Performance. Meristem helps Iowa farmers take cost out and produce more bushels for less. Come see them at booth 3881 at Commodity Classic later this week in San Antonio. Mark, we were just talking before we went on the air here today, going through all our last minute who's covering what, who's traveling when, so we can make sure everything's in the book, because the whole crew heading down to San Antonio here this year.
Yeah, we've got everybody going. And Dustin, I wanted to ask you, have you been to Commodity when it's been in San Antonio before? Have you been there for this event in San Antonio?
Yes, I have. Apparently, you want to hear the horrible story, though, of the last time I went to San Antonio. It wasn't that it was bad.
I didn't know there was one.
Well, it was a great time in San Antonio. Absolutely loved it. Okay, and I'm looking forward to going here again because it's right by the Riverwalk, or as Charles Barkley says, a dirty creek. But we're going to be there. It's a great time. The Alamo's right nearby as well, so we get a chance to walk by and see that. You do it by yourself. It takes maybe about 15 minutes to go through and read everything, but it's still kind of cool to see. But the last time I was in San Antonio, I came back on a Saturday, just like I'm going to be doing this year. And by Tuesday, the world was starting to shut down because it was right before the pandemic. It was literally days before the world started shutting down. And Anna Hastert was still working with us at that time. And Anna was very concerned because there were cases that popped up. One of the first places they were mentioning that these cases were popping up in the U.S. was in San Antonio. And I remember her getting a little nervous. And I said, well, it's too late now. If we got it, we got it. Turns out we didn't, obviously. But yeah, so the following year, it was going to be a rare occasion that a city was going to play host 2 years in a row. So 2021 was supposed to be in San Antonio again. But because of the pandemic, it was a virtual Commodity Classic that year. And so we did not get to go back. And I was really looking forward to that. And San Antonio is one of my favorite places to visit for this event. Been to a couple places now, a couple of places multiple times, but I'm definitely looking forward to getting back there again.
Well, and part of the reason I ask is this will only be my second Commodity Classic. My first was in Orlando, and I was wondering, everything's bigger in Texas. Do they do Commodity even bigger in Texas?
Oh, they do. They do. So it's going to be I'm sure they're going to try to outdo Houston from 2 years ago as well. But it's always a good time. It's always a great show to be at. Lots of great information. We're going to be bringing you back all kinds of content. Meristem here, we mentioned earlier, one of our sponsors. So is Iowa Corn. So is Nutrien, and also our friends at Cropland are going to be sponsoring our content, so we're looking forward to that. We're going to get the ball rolling here. Lots to talk about as we get into the grain markets. Mark Magnuson has more with Greg McBride of Allendale.
Joined today by Greg McBride of Allendale. Greg, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Well, somewhat quiet to start here. We spent most of the overnight lower. The shocker of the situation with the Supreme Court and the tariff, the IEPA decision on Friday, plus the addition of 10% tariffs that President Trump talked about on Friday, and then upping it to 15% for all countries, kind of has the markets unsure of how to proceed here. It's negativity to start, kind of bouncing back to more unchanged or neutral type movement as the day session has gotten going. And I think the big thing, right now is you're going to have a lot of questions. So the question becomes, do we have to pay back? Does the United States have to pay back these tariffs that were under the IEPA Act? And do we? Where do we go with the trade deals that have been signed now that he's announced these sweeping 15% tariffs for the next 150 days? Now, these are obviously, it's a temporary situation, but it is something that will have to be reapproved later on. So there's a lot of questions, a lot of unknowns regarding this whole tariff situation and what this does for existing trade deals. We've heard that the parts of the EU or the EU itself has has said they're going to freeze the trade deal that they've got with the United States until there's more information. China has talked about their situation and said that they will not stand for an additional 15% when they work out the framework of the trade deal. So there's going to be a lot of countries that are going to give pushback on this whole situation. So nothing is settled at this point, and we look forward to hearing more information, getting a little more clarity about how we could proceed.
So, Greg, with everything you've laid out then, does that mean traders, at least for the immediate future, will they keep their powder dry, not knowing, exactly what to do because there is so much uncertainty?
Well, I think for right now, you've started to see the funds have been coming back into to the long side of the market, especially on the soybean side of the complex, the soybean complex. So you continue to grow regrow that long position in the soybeans, and you've seen the wheat turn things around. So we'll go back to maybe more of a fundamental situation with the wheat maybe setting back a little bit today on additional rains in the 15-day forecast, but it is still dry for that area. That's one of the things I would be watching. Just go more traditional fundamentals rather than what's going on with all the noise regarding tariffs. So I think for right now, I'm not looking for anything majorly upside here, but producers should be watching the prices on, say, the soybean for opportunities to be making cash sales off of last year's crop. And then corn still remains range bound, so we're a little bit concerned about that. The one thing I would remind everybody, we just had option expiration on Friday of last week, which means that this coming Friday, will be first notice. So a lot of cash decisions will need to be made, whether they're going to roll those contracts out to May or July, or whether they're going to contract that cash and just get it off the books, because the corn market frankly is moving.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
Back on Iowa Ag Matters. And of course, one of the things we've been talking about in the last couple of weeks and even months now is the dietary guidelines, the newest ones that are out. Of course, the meat industry has been quite happy with some of the results. And Mark's talking with the president-elect of NCBA right now to get their position.
Mark Magnuson for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and I'm joined today by Kim Brackett. She is the vice president of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. And Kim, first of all, as we are here at CattleCon 2026 in Nashville, when you think back to your year that you have been in this leadership position as vice president, I guess, has there been anything that has surprised you about this role as, your job duties as vice president? And then what's something you've really enjoyed about being the vice president with NCBA?
Well, thanks for having me here, Mark. This is great. 2025 was a great year for cattle producers. I honestly think maybe I'm surprised by how great the year was. That might have been what I was unprepared for. My favorite thing about being an officer at NCBA is learning about different regions of the country and what production looks like. Say in the South, I'm from Idaho, so what does production look like in the Southeast or the Northeast? So that's definitely been a huge highlight for me. The other thing is meeting these great people. I cannot tell you how reassuring it is when you visit with the folks that lead this association and you learn that they are just farmers, ranchers, just like you are, and being able to relate to them and understand who it is that we're really working for here at NCBA.
And to your first point, did you know about all of the differences that go into raising cattle in different parts of the country? You're from Idaho, for example. That's where you live. Grew up in Wyoming, I believe you said. So you're very familiar with how cattle are raised in that part of the world. Was it eye-opening for you then, learning about the different areas of the country and what goes into cattle production?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely eye-opening. Today, as a matter of fact, I was learning about the Asian longhorn tick. the Asian longhorn tick, which is a problem for producers in the East. It was terrifying to learn what they're facing. We have ticks out west, but a different caliber of tick I think they're facing here. So that's just one example of the different challenges that I have learned about for producers across this country, and recognizing that NCBA has to work for all producers, right? So in order to effectively lead this association, I need to be able to understand Asian longhorn ticks and what the impact of that is for cattle producers.
When you think about the dietary guidelines that we recently received from the United States government, kind of the path leading the way forward for what the guidelines are going to look like and what has been laid out basically for Americans in terms of the new shape of those guidelines, what do you think has been the biggest takeaway for you in this rollout and kind of learning all of the bullet points that go along with it?
Well, you mentioned the new shape of the dietary guidelines. I cannot believe we've flipped that pyramid on its head. It is upside down now. These guidelines focus on whole foods, they focus on nutrient density, and they focus on high quality protein, which I don't know about you, Mark, but for me, that spells beef. That's absolutely spells beef. This focus of these dietary guidelines on modern nutrition science is really what the game changer was. I think it's important to understand that beef nutrition research has been going on for decades, and to have this dietary Guidelines Committee recognize the value of beef nutrition research and take that into consideration as they develop these guidelines and released guidelines that are focused on high quality protein. And you know what it did? It doubled protein recommended daily allowance for almost every category of Americans across the country. That's a huge win for producers in the United States.
She is Kim Brackett, Vice President with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Kim, thanks so much for the discussion here today at CattleCon, and have a great rest of the convention.
Thank you so much, Mark. Great conversation.
Spring planning starts with one smart decision. Corn Pro from Landis delivers a complete corn program with built-in savings. Nutritionals, herbicide, and fungicide, all working together in one plan backed by local expertise. Lock in competitive pricing, sign up any number of acres, and take advantage of 0% interest through 2026 to protect your cash flow. Less complexity, more performance. Get the most out of your corn crop with Corn Pro from Landis. Talk with your local Landis team today.
It's time to run down the cash grain bids here on Iowa Ag Matters on this Monday. I'm Dustin Huffman. Not seeing very much change at all in the elevator prices. Let's take a look at where they're bidding. Starting at IAM Burlington, they're 11 cents under on corn at $4.14. Soybeans 14 cents under at $11.14. At Cargill and Eddyville, they are 12 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.13. New Co-op Algona 31 cents under on corn, $3.94. Soybeans 67 cents under, cash bid $10.61. Ag State Sheldon 18 cents under on corn, $4.07. Soybeans 75 cents under, $10.53. Ag State Alta 37 cents under on corn, $3.88. Soybeans 65 cents under, cash bid $10.63. Cargill Cedar Rapids a dime under on corn, $4.15 for the cash price. Soybeans 40 cents under at $10.88. Five-Star Co-op Nashua 22 cents under on corn, $4.03. Soybeans 60 cents under at $10.68. Lincoln Way Energy Nevada 17 cents under on corn, $4.08 for the cash bid. ADM Des Moines 50 cents under on soybeans, their cash price $10.78. New Co-op Red Oak 28 cents under on corn, $3.97. Soybeans 73 cents under at $10.55. Mid-Iowa Cooperative Green Mountain 36 cents under on corn, cash bid $3.89. Soybeans 80 cents under, $10.48. New Co-op Sheraton 32 cents under on corn, $3.93. Soybeans 73 cents under, cash bid $10.55. Walk-On Feed Ranch 38 cents under on corn, $3.87. Soybeans 70 cents under at $10.58. New Co-op Glidden 30 cents under on corn, $3.95 for the cash bid. Soybeans 67 cents under at $10.61. Innovative Ag Services in Farley, they're 39 cents under on corn at $3.86 today. Soybeans 72 cents under with a cash bid of $10.56. And finally today at Cargill and Muscatine, the river is closed yet for the season. Deliveries will resume in about a month, the week of March the 23rd. Cash corn and soybean bids are subject to change without notice. Always check with your local elevators when making sales to obtain the most recent price. And that's been a check of your cash grain bids here on Iowa Ag Matters. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this message.
$400 bill on that full label is going to be sold.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Here on Iowa Ag Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, Russ Parker had the chance to speak with Central Life Sciences at the NCBA convention, and they are really experts when it comes to dealing with fly issues, fly pressure with your animals, and making sure that they are not being stressed out by those flies. Here's Russ with more.
So to that point, you referenced some research that had been done and kind of outlines or defines or really can determine the impact of at least the financial losses that are out there.
Absolutely. This is work from Dr. Dickerson back, I believe, in the early to mid 90s out of University of Georgia. That, for example, he suggested that it could be higher than 75% of all heifers have mastitis before they calve. And you go, man, how is that possible? There's no milk there to nourish or anything, but it's possible because of flies and fly pressure. And, those heifers, some of them probably get over it, but how many of them come in with just 3 titters or 2 titters and have less milk then? So weaning weight's going to be affected on all of her calves that she's ever going to have because she's not producing as much milk as the one that doesn't have those issues. Upper Midwest, anaplasmosis is a big deal. That's transferred from flies, blood meals, horn fly, stable fly. The Alticid primarily targets the horn fly out on range and pasture. And it will work a little bit on the face fly as well. But primary target with Clarifly is the house fly, the stable fly, the horn fly, and the face fly. So, it's going to get all 4. 2 are blood eaters, your horn fly and your stable fly. Your face fly and the house fly are going to be sponge-type mouthpart feeders. So there's a little bit different modes of action. But on the swine side, we've done a lot of research with Dr. Gauger in Walcott, Iowa, at Iowa State, proving that disease is indeed a disease vector transfer on flies. It's not just on flies, but it's in them. So there's a lot of different diseases that these guys can spread. We know for a fact that, the horn fly, for example, in the cattle industry affects the industry to the tune of about $2.3 billion, and that's billion with a B. That's in lost revenue. It could be from disease. It could be from loss of, your calving percentage. For example, cattle that are under a lot of fly pressure will huddle up in the middle of their pasture, in the middle of their range, and they're doing that to decrease their surface area, to not allow the fly as much access to them. But what if there's heifers in the middle of that group in the heat of the summer on a hot summer day that are trying to get that embryo to attach for the first time? Well, chances are a lot of them show up open, or they absorb that embryo and it never attaches. Again, lost revenue. That heifer, that cow didn't produce a calf that year. So that's where the lost revenue happens.
Well, we've gotten a lesson on flies and the dynamics that they bring to the marketplace in terms of potential challenges. So if a person hearing this wants to start doing some exploring, get a little bit more information, where's a good place for them to start?
Excellent question, Russ. They can go to a couple of different websites. First and foremost, before any of this is going to work, it all starts with cleanliness. So it does come back to husbandry. Have we cleaned up the round bale rings that are out there where we fed, through the winter and through the early spring? Those are hotbeds for fly breeding. Clean those up, spread those out, scoop them in the back of spreaders and spread it on your crop ground or whatever. Get rid of them, because those are hotbred. So it all starts with cleanliness, but you can go to basically 2 different websites, centralflycontrol.com, and it's going to have most of the information that I've just covered on Clarifly and Alticid on all species. It will also have you calculators on there on how to feed it if you're buying raw product and mixing it, or if you're buying it through a commercial grain of any brand, it's going to have a lot of information on there. And then you also are going to need, even though you might be feeding fly control affecting future generations of flies, you're still going to potentially have the need for ear tags, for back rubbers, for pour-ons, and that you can find at starbar.com. That's also another vertical that we work with. It has adulticides, fly baits, sticky traps that we maybe even use in our kitchen to control house flies, and that kind of stuff is all going to be on that Starbar website on how to use them in conjunction with the feed through or just by themselves.
Well, I've been with Kirk Dailey with Central Life Sciences, been our guest here at the NCBA convention. Appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Russ. I appreciate the opportunity.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
Well, there was, of course, a lot of tariff discussion last Friday after President Trump's tariffs were struck down by the Supreme Court. But it's back to the drawing board pretty much for everything, Dustin, as the president had some comments about new tariff numbers, right?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of expected. I mean, I shouldn't say I'm surprised by seeing this, but yeah, the Supreme Court said that the president did not have the authority, obviously, under the 1973 rule that he was citing as his basis for putting these tariffs on. So he went to a 1974 rule and has re-put tariffs back on ones on countries we do not have obviously trade deals with. Obviously, he's not going to go back to Taiwan and all this and start all over again. But he's put a 15% tariff on them. So he's circumventing the Supreme Court, much like we expected to. And if it's going to be a fight, it starts back again at square one, and we start this process all over again to see if those tariffs are legal as well. More Iowa Ag Matters in a moment.
Spring planting starts with one smart decision. Corn Pro from Landis delivers a complete corn program with built-in savings. Nutritionals, herbicide, and fungicide, all working together in one plan backed by local expertise. Lock in competitive pricing, sign up any number of acres, and take advantage of 0% interest through 2026 to protect your cash flow. Less complexity, more performance. Get the most out of your corn crop with Corn Pro from Landis. Talk with your local Landis team today.
This is the Midday Market Update on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson, joined at midday by Justin McKinney of Comstock. Justin, as we look at the screens here at midday, we've seen some gains for the soybeans. What's happening in the trade?
Definitely this morning we've seen some stronger markets in the soybeans. Currently we're sitting on the soybean side of the world up about 8.5 to 9 in the front months. New crops trading slightly better, 9.5 higher here as we move into the start of this week. Corn resting right about 2.5 to 4 higher in the May. We do have all those basis contracts and first notice day coming up Friday. So we'll have to see how that plays into the market. Historically, that has been kind of a downturn for the front month futures as we price those out. But looks good today anyway. We'll see how the week progresses.
So with the entire soybean complex seeing gains here at midday, is that good news for soybeans? Or like you mentioned, is this just positioning ahead of the end of the week, do you think? What do you think's going on?
It could be positioning ahead of the end of the week. The other thing to think about is we possibly could be positioning for tomorrow night's State of the Union address. I know historically we don't see huge agriculture moves, but I think back to President Bush saying we're addicted to foreign oil. Corn continued to rally after that, right? What is possibly President Trump going to say tomorrow night? I think first and foremost, we do have to worry about, as an agriculture community, the negative news of grocery prices. That is first and foremost in a lot of voters' minds. But also we do have those RFS decisions coming down the pipeline, and potentially we could get some information leading us to better markets. So I would agree, we're positioning for tomorrow night and we're positioning for the end of the week.
So that's the grain side of the markets. What's happening on the livestock trade so far today?
Yeah, cattle had a wild day here. We're down about $1.30 in the February. They expire at the end of the week, so very short in the tooth on those. Looking at those April forward, down about $2 on those. Feeders down about $3 right now. I would guess a lot of that is spillover from the stock market being beat up pretty hard here today. Also, again, following up those earlier comments, it would be a complete surprise to me if something wasn't mentioned about grocery prices and the beef price in the State of the Union, which could be a tad negative towards the cattle market. We also do have that JBS impending strike that could potentially happen as early as Saturday. We're not killing cattle on Saturdays anymore, but it would lead into Monday. So cattle market, a little bit uncertain.
Start your weekend with insight and inspiration on Weekend Ag Matters from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Every week we bring you an in-depth look at the top ag stories with a recap of the week's biggest headlines. Join us for long-format interviews with industry leaders and policymakers, giving you insights you won't hear anywhere else. And don't miss our faith-based segment with Russ Parker, Food for Thought, offering a perspective that helps bring clarity and focus to our lives. Make Weekend Ag Matters part of your weekend routine. Tune in every weekend on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
March corn up 2 3/4 at $4.30 1/4. March soybeans up 9 1/4 at $11.46 3/4. March soybean meal up $2.40 at $3.12.20. March soybean oil up 83 cents at $59.75. On the Merc, April live cattle down $2.50 at $239.50. March feeder cattle down $4.15 at $363.88. April lean hogs up 58 cents at $94.25. That was a check of the midday markets on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson.
Back on Iowa Ag Matters, and we're going to go into that livestock marketplace as we look at what's happening with the cattle and hogs. I know we just heard in the midday numbers, cattle not having a very good day. Let's see what is setting that up. Greg McBride of Allendale talking with Mark Magnuson right now.
Well, we finished Friday kind of quiet. We started out today a little bit quiet on the cattle side of things. The April cattle are about 35 cents. The April fats are about 55 cents. So a relatively quiet start. But we did get the cattle on feed report. It was pretty much as expected. This is 10 months straight of lower placements than the previous year. It came in at 95.3% on Friday's report. The on-feed number came in at 98.2%. Both of those are friendly. Marketings were 87%. That was in line with the expectations. So, but those marketings are still very big. Even though that is slightly bearish, those are still a big concern. So we'll continue to watch that. But overall, this is a market that's in an uptrend. It's gone a little bit sideways in the last few days, but it still continues to hold some premium. And it is very near its upside targets with regard to some old gaps left from when we broke off the highs in October. On the hog side of things, this is a market that's gone a little bit quiet. It reached up, look at the June contract, it reached up to that 112 area and has backed off on just a little bit. So the late spring, early summer contract still sitting elevated at this 108 to 110 area. But for right now, I'd be a little bit careful as the market looks like it's trying to find the top. And if it does, that's a market that can change its trend and stay with that new trend for quite a while.
What's the best way for our listeners to get in touch for more marketing information?
Give us a call at 800-2-MARKET. That's 800-262-7538.
Greg McBride of Allendale, my guest here today. Thanks so much for the time and have a great rest of your Monday.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Well, coming up here now on Iowa Ag Matters, Riley Smith had the chance to talk with Greg McBride of Allendale. We'll bring him back one more time to talk about export sales and the numbers that came out late last week and find out how they stacked up from the week prior. Riley?
On the phone right now with Greg McBride of Allendale as we take a look at the weekly U.S. export sales report. Greg, what do we see in the latest numbers from the USDA?
Yeah, it was good sales. We were looking for anywhere from 600,000 to 2.2 million tons for old crop corn. Came in at 1.469. That was the second best sale for this particular week in history. So very good sales. We'll take that as a win. The sales for corn continue to be strong. So we fully recognize that the USDA is keeping up with these sales and keeping the balance sheet up to date on all these WASDE reports. So this is a good sign for us. This will continue to help maybe bring these ending stocks down for us. On the bean side of things, again, it was a good sale, and I'm going to say this as a relative comment because when we talk about soybean sales, having 798,000 tons for a particular week isn't necessarily a big or a strong sale, but depending on the time of the year, that 800,000 tons is a strong week. So this is normally the time where you would see those big sales going to Brazil. So for us to have 800,000 tons that sold in old crop beans this week, that's a very strong sale for this particular time of the year. We did notice that about half of that was actually to China. Now some of that was adjusted from unknown sales, but most of it was new sales. We didn't have any flash sales to go along with it, but we did see some good numbers out of that, and we continue to watch the other countries when it comes to the non-Chinese buyer. They were good sales for this particular week as well. So some of these trade deals that we've entered into are continuing to pay off in a time where we wouldn't normally see them. When most of the demand goes to Brazil.
And then, of course, today, very big news of the Supreme Court striking down President Trump's tariffs, or most of them. And obviously, that's been rocking the marketplace a little bit already. But as we look into the future with this announcement, where do we think that could impact the markets, and then also that export sale marketplace?
Yeah, so I don't know that it actually changes anything, because there are other tools that he can use or other excuses as to why he can put tariffs on specific countries. And I think that's one of the things he has just announced, was that he's going to impose additional tariffs on these countries to basically just to kind of fill in the blanks of the international emergency economic program that he was doing. So that EPA deal, as it goes away, just kind of opens the door for him to come back in with other tariffs, or at least other reasoning behind tariffs to go with it. So I think when you look at what the market did with it, we saw a major sell-off in the soybeans when it happened. We saw a sell-off when he first was discussing it. Now we've kind of gravitated back to unknown, or not to unknown, but unchanged for the day. So I think the big thing is I don't think it really changes anything. I don't think that taking tariffs away for one reason and putting them right back on for another reason, it really makes any kind of a difference. So we're still working through trade deals, but the tariff situation remains in place. It's just under a different heading as to why it's there. Instead of being an emergency action, it's something else.
All right, Greg, lots of great information today. For anyone who would like to get in touch with Allendale for more marketing information, how can they do that?
give us a call at 800-2-MARKET. That's 800-262-7538.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
At the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, we deliver ag-focused content designed to complement your local radio station. From market updates to the latest ag news, our trusted farm broadcasters bring you the information you need while your local station keeps you connected to the heart of your community. And just like your local station, our broadcast team is Iowa-based, so we have feet on the ground across the state. Together, we're stronger for Iowa's farmers. This message from your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Iowa Ag Matters here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Thank you to Riley. Thank you to Dustin. I'm Mark Magnuson, and thanks to you, the listener. Join us again tomorrow for more Iowa Ag Matters here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.